hello. It's time for Animarathon. Animarathon. Yes, I'm a nerd. I go to conventions. I did this really smart thing that I found on the internet, and what I did was I put the general admission, but then I put the code that links to my website that has all of my links on it on the back, so that when people asked for my information, I could just show them the back of my back of my badge. It worked out pretty well. So, tip for artists, creators, creatives, anyone: do the thing. It's much more useful because you don't have to worry about trying to hand out cards. You can just have them scan the thing. I did also have some cards on me too. The problem is that the codes on those cards are expired because the website that I made the code on did not tell me that they would expire, which is infuriating. But anyway, this one is a permanent code, and I don't have to worry about it. And I know that it's permanent because I checked it before I did the thing. Another good tip is to always make sure to check your code before you take it to the convention. That way you don't fuck it up. So, I would normally do the vloggy thing and the haul video thing as the same video, but I thought I would decide to do them as two separate videos because I have a lot of things. Actually, technically, it's going to be multiple separate videos because I also did a bunch of pack openings and stuff, and those are on the other channels. Go check them out, please. Anyways, if you're wondering what is going on with my hair, it is because I've been wearing a wig for the past 2 days, and my hair has decided to go ploof. That is all. As for the convention, they had a lot fewer guests this year than normal, but the guests were slightly bigger named, I would say. So the main one that I actually went and wanted to meet was Jonah Scott. He did, he was in Skate the Infinite and several others. He was like one of the members of, he was like One Piece at some point, and Beastars is like his most known thing. I actually found out about Skate the Infinite because of the episodes of Drawfee, where they have Jonah Scott on them. I didn't really talk to him a huge amount of time because we were both busy, so it's like, that's how you don't really get to talk to them for a huge amount of time usually. But I did ask about how working with Drawfee was and all that fun and a couple other, mostly how working with Drawfee was, because like in terms of voice acting questions, while I do have some, I feel like those would be better suited for a panel, and we didn't get to make it to his Q&A panel because it was during another panel that we had specifically cosplayed for. But I did ask him about that, and there's not really a whole lot to say about that. Animarathon, I would say, is a good, like, starter convention. So Animarathon was actually my first convention in, like, 2014 or 15, something like that. My friend actually took me because it's always in March, which is the month that my birthday's in. So my birthday present was her taking me to the convention. So Animarathon tends to be a good convention for starters because it's not huge, but also because everything is kind of self-contained. So there's only like 3 floors. There's only so much on each floor. The bottom floor is almost exclusively like food and administrate and like admittance and lost and found, and then everything else happens on the second and third floors. And even then, most things don't happen on the third floor. So you'll find yourself mostly staying on the second floor. I do appreciate that they do have a lot of slightly more healthy food options compared to most cons, because it is held at a college, which means that they have a whole bunch of different food options. But even this year, there were a whole lot of like people who had brought their children along, or maybe it was children that made their parents come. I'm not sure. It's always hard to tell with them because sometimes it's the children dressed up, sometimes it's the adults dressed up, and sometimes it's both. So it's kind of difficult to tell. Panels this year, they actually had quite a few decent ones. So that was incredibly useful. Because I'm one of those weird people that actually likes going to panels. The weird thing they did this year was they closed the dealer's room early on Saturday. That was really weird. Because, like, usually they keep the dealer's room open at least until the start of the dance party. At least they used to before COVID. I don't remember exactly how they did it last year, because last year we ended up leaving early because our entire party ended up not feeling great at the end of the day, so we ended up leaving early. We also left kind of early both days this year, but that's mostly because the things that we cared about doing kind of died at like 7, and the only thing that was left that we kind of vaguely wanted to do was the dance party. And we were like, do we care enough about going to the dance party to wait for this many hours? And the answer ended up being no, especially since we had one friend who, the friend that we brought, needed to get back home because he works weird hours and worked today. So, and then we ended up leaving slightly early today because, so day 1 is always really packed, and then day 2 is always kind of dead. So one of the fun things that we got to do was see a completely different dub of My Neighbor Totoro, because one of the people that did a panel made an HD version of My Neighbor Totoro using the Fox dub, which was a version that I hadn't seen before. Actually, most people at that panel hadn't seen before. So, and that ended up being hilarious, because when you get a bunch of nerds in a thing to watch a movie that everyone already kind of knows the basic premise of, and it's kind of, I don't want to say My Neighbor Totoro is a nothing movie, but it is kind of a nothing movie. And I mean that in the best possible way, because it's the kind of movie that you can have on in the background and you don't have to be paying full attention to, and you still hit every beat because you can just listen to it and know what's going on. But also, if you are giving it your full attention, it's kind of an even better experience because the artwork is amazing. So, but when you get like a group of people that have all seen this movie at the very least once, usually multiple times, and they all know the basic premise of it, even if this is a very slightly different version, you end up with a ridiculously hilarious amount of commentary going on. Like, we ended up leaving that panel all talking about like a dust bunny cult that we had all just made up and decided we were going to use for a while after that. there were quite a few Has-Been Hotel cosplayers, which made me very, very happy. There was a strangely lacking amount of Baldur's Gate characters, which made me a little bit sad. But there were, like, at least 4, if not more, Astarians over the course of the last 2 days, and that made me very happy. Because I definitely don't have a type. We ran into a couple of the friends that we met at Colossal last year. She actually ended up hosting the panel that we specifically had dressed for yesterday. So that was fun. Honestly, I think my favorite panel, though, was the last panel we did today. Because it was talking about, like, the history of swords in Japan. And I've always really liked that kind of thing. But also, the guy that runs that is hilarious. And I love listening to people who, like, who clearly take their job seriously and who clearly love and enjoy their job. But also realize you're at a convention and it's the last day and everyone's tired. And they're cracking jokes with you because they realize that it's like, you're here to learn, but also I'm going to make you laugh because you're half dead right now. Also, this year they did a completely different thing that they hadn't done in any of the past years, at least not that I can remember. And that is, they actually gave out paper flyers that gave you, like, the entire list of panels and everything, and, like, what each panel, like, bullet points about each panel, what each panel is about and stuff. I don't remember them doing that last year. I don't think they did. I think this is the first year they did that, and I highly appreciate it. Because not everyone wants to walk around killing their phone, constantly checking their phone to find the panels. But also not everyone has a big enough phone that zooming in to find them is an option. My only complaint with them doing that is that they did it in a really strange way. And by that I mean, if you pull up their spreadsheet online, and I might actually just show it when I do the show and tell thing, but if you pull up their thing online, it's like a really long list of things. And they put it so one half was on one side and one half was on the other for the same day. Except the problem with that is that all of the time stamps were only on one, because they didn't translate them to the second one. And literally the way they could have easily fixed that is just putting one on one side of the page and one on the other side of the page so they lined up. And I don't know why they didn't do it that way. That seems a little bit silly to me. Maybe they'll fix that next year, hopefully. But I do highly appreciate giving us the option of having, like, a paper flyer to actually just know what in each panel is instead of having to constantly check our phone for that. Because that is highly useful. I also highly appreciate the amount of extra seating, and I'm aware that the reason that there's so much extra seating is because it's a college. But I do highly appreciate the amount of seating that is just everywhere. Like, you can go basically anywhere and there's seating. And there's, like, more quiet places to sit. And there's more active places to sit. And there's places in between to sit. And there's places on all 3 of the levels that you're on to sit. And while that may not seem like a huge thing to someone who's not been to a convention, if you've been to a convention, there's a lot of times the only place to sit is the floor. And if you're wearing dresses or more fancy costumes, or you're wearing shoes that make it difficult for you to stand back up off of the floor, or if you're wearing shoes that just make it more difficult to be walking around for that length of time, because cosplayers suffer for our art. That's kind of, anyone who does any kind of art is suffering at some point in time. And a lot of times for cosplayers that involves the shoes or the hair, because there's very few comfortable wig caps. And so just being able to have been walking around for a while and then just walking and being able to find a place to sit almost anywhere is amazing. So I do highly appreciate that. All in all, Animarathon, for me specifically, and I've not been to a huge amount of different conventions. Like, I've been to, I think, a total of 4 different conventions. Because there's not a huge amount that happen in the immediate area around us. And also because cons are expensive, and so you kind of have to pick. We usually end up picking, like, one small one and then one larger one, and it usually ends up being Animarathon is our small one because it's nearby and it's fairly cheap. It's not, like, horribly, massively expensive to get into Animarathon, which is always a bonus. And then we usually do Colossal Con. But the other ones that I used to do every year, and then they canceled for some reason, and I don't think they ever brought them back after COVID happened, after we had a plague, are Glass City and Tag. I don't think they ever brought those back, and that kind of upsets me because Glass City was also a really nice convention. And Tag was just hosted in the same convention center as Glass City. It was just like a 1-day convention instead of a 3-day. So, they were both very good, and then they just stopped existing, and that makes me sad. I hope they bring Glass City back at least. Tag I care slightly less about because it was only a 1-day. So that one is like, oh, that's something that keeps us from being bored on one of the weekend days. But I do hope they bring Glass City back because that was fun. I think the problem ended up being that the people who ran Glass City started running a different convention, but I'm not sure. I don't know the entire, like, dynamics or story behind that. If you know more, hey, let me know in the comments. I don't know. Anyway, all in all, I've always kind of thought Animarathon was a very good, I hit the desk, was a very good convention, and generally speaking, it's always, at least to me, been a very good beginner convention, a very good convention to start people on conventions because it tends to be a very chill vibe there. Like, it's not nearly as frantic as, like, Colossal, because the problem that you end up running into with Colossal is that you end up being like, where do I spend my time? Because Colossal takes place at a resort, which means that you can spend your time at the convention, at one of the massive game rooms. There's mini golf, there's a freaking water park, there's an outdoor swimming area. There's also always, like, parties in the hotel rooms. And it just ends up being a mess because you have too many options, essentially. And so I've always felt like Animarathon is a good place to start because it's all right there. It's all basic. All of the food is served right there. If you want to get food, there's coffee literally right there because there's a Starbucks on campus, literally on the same floor in the same area as the convention. There's the cafeteria that opens with the convention. So you have an entire kind of way to have an ecosystem going on, and you don't have to worry about, well, I need to stop and go back to my hotel room to get food, and if I'm at my hotel room, I may as well change into my swimsuit, and we may as well go to the thing. You don't have that because it's all kind of contained, which I've always felt makes it a very good starting place. So I would give it a solid 4 out of 5, honestly. And honestly, the only reason it doesn't have a 5 out of 5 is because it feels like they're still trying to get their footing after we had our plague. And it seems, at least to me, like they're still trying to put themselves back together again after that. Because, like, previously they always made it very easy to tell who was working the convention versus who was just random there, because everyone who was working the convention would be cosplaying something similar. So, like, the one year everyone was a sim, and so they were able to wear whatever they wanted, but you could tell that they were working the convention because they had the little bobble thingy. Or you would be able to tell if they were working the convention because they would all be wearing cosplays that had a band around their thing or whatever, and that made it really easy to be able to find whoever you needed to find, to be like, hey, can you help me with finding blank? And essentially my main problem is that it feels like they are still trying to get their footing, and thus I'm hoping within the next couple they figure that out. But anywho, you guys have a lovely day. I have convention stuff to go through. Cosplays to put away. You can see my tutu thingy up there. I don't trust it in the washer, so I usually just let it air clean, and then I like hand wash it or whatever if it's needed. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's not been incredibly warm up here, which means that I've been not sweaty. Which means that washing it is not entirely necessary, hopefully. We shall determine that after it's dried a little bit. Anywho, if you want convention photos, follow my links in the description, because I will be posting them all week. If you want shorts, convention shorts are going to be going up probably shortly, intermixed with the zoo shorts, because boy gee golly, do I have a lot of zoo shorts. Oopsie doodles. And yeah. So, follow me on all social medias. I am on every social media known to man, and several known only to dogs. I'm certain on one or more of them you will find most of them. You will find convention photos, cosplay photos, art, poetry, whatever I feel like doing that day, really, honestly. Anywho, toodaloo.